You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 68.
Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how to stop over drinking in 90 days without missing out on life. If you're not an alcoholic, but fed up with saying yes to a drink when you mean to say no, you're in the right place.
Hi all and welcome back to the podcast. Glad you can join me. Okay, so today I want to talk about seeking comfort. And why? Well, because it's one of the number one reasons I hear from many people as to why they drink. So let's start with the obvious question in terms of why seek comfort from alcohol. Well, comfort means different things to different people, but it's all connected to a desire to feel good, right? And as I've said many times on the podcast before, we as humans are drawn to feeling pleasure. Now, whether that's because we like the sensation of a fluffy duvet that molds to your body, perhaps it's a cup of hot milk at bedtime and how that makes you feel. Perhaps it's seeing a rainbow or drinking a glass of freezing cold water on a really hot day. Maybe you get comfort from seeing the first spring flowers, right? When I see those cowslips in bloom, it means that winter is almost over, or at least all the coldness of the year is over. You know, we get comfort from receiving a phone call from a loved one, all of these things. Now, long-time listeners to this podcast will know that we get pleasure from these things based on how we think about them, right? If we find them comforting, it's because we are thinking comforting thoughts about them. If rainbows make you think of a time in your life when maybe there was a rainbow when you'd finished a great long race and you thought, there we go, that's my symbol, all the hardship is done, then you might really have a really warm, comforting feeling when you see a rainbow. But if you associate rainbows with getting wet, because it means there's water in the air, right? There's rain in the air, then you may not appreciate them and have less comforting thoughts about them, right? And you can equally decide a fluffy duvet is wonderful, or maybe it's just irritating. So comfort is a state of mind that comes when we feel good. But, and that's a very big but, when we associate comfort with consuming something, that's when it gets tricky. Because if you, for instance, associate comfort with drinking wine in terms of, and how this shows up is you say things like, well, I get my comfort when I kick my shoes off at night and have my glass of wine. That's when I give myself the longed for comfort. That's how I get my me time, right? That's how it becomes how I see the act of giving myself comfort. It becomes how I see and feel comfort, right? All through the consumption. So what happens when you stop consuming the wine, right? You decide, I just don't want to do this anymore. I think I drink too much. I'm going to stop this. That all sounds well and good, but when you stop that consumption, that's when your brain is going to jump to thinking that you're stopping comfort, right? Because if the way you got comfort was to consume this thing called wine, if you're stopping consuming wine, then it's kind of like a red alert that we're going to stop the feeling comfort, right? And we need comfort. We want comfort as humans. And when our comfort is connected to consuming something, we are not going to want to stop the consuming. We're going to resent stopping the consumption. Because as I said, it's really like we're saying to ourselves, right, it's time for the comfort to end now. But all the while, we still want to feel that comfort. And this is why, my friends, it can feel so difficult to stop drinking. Because our brains see it and interpret it as a way of denying ourselves much needed comfort and expected comfort too. But I want to offer a different approach. And it's all to do with our feelings and not making our feelings a problem, because we are human beings. We feel feelings. It's what we do. It's part of what our human experience is. We humans are meant to have a range of emotions in our lives, given any circumstances that we find ourselves in. And the more we can learn to accept our own feelings for what they are, the more we will see our feelings as not a problem to solve, right? If we're feeling sad or frustrated or stressed or anxious, we're not going to see these as problems to solve, because we are going to feel these emotions from time to time. There isn't some magic pill you can take or something you can do that means you are never, ever, ever going to feel frustrated or anxious again. It's just not going to happen. But what happens is when we start to see these emotions as a problem to solve, then we start judging ourselves. And I hear people say all the time, for instance, I have a great life, right? And I have a really great life. And I know I shouldn't be feeling overwhelmed right now. I mean, I have nothing to complain about. I really shouldn't be feeling this way. And that's strewn with judgment, right? You can hear it. And when we're thinking that way, when we're thinking, well, I'm feeling this way, and I think that feels pretty bad, but actually I really shouldn't be feeling that way, that just creates more anxiety for ourselves, right? And then we don't fall more back into those old patterns of drinking to get rid of how that emotion is feeling. Because that's what we end up doing. It's like we're trying to get rid of these emotions, right? We're trying to seek comfort from something outside of us, which often means wine. If you're listening to this podcast, wine or some sort of alcoholic drink, we look to that drink to get rid of these emotions. But all of that changes when we realize that nothing has gone wrong. We are just feeling a feeling right now. Okay, it's one that doesn't make us feel that comfortable, granted, but that's okay, because we are going to feel discomfort from time to time. It is not an emergency. And in fact, discomfort in life, I will say, is a given. In fact, we are supposed to feel uncomfortable, to be pushed out of our comfort zone, right? We're here to grow, we're here to evolve, we're here to become and to develop. And all of those things, all of the growth, all of the evolving, all of the becoming someone you can now only imagine of, right? So all of this, creating your imagination, it needs and requires discomfort. And you know this already, so I want you to think about the changes you've made in your life, how you've evolved over time, and how uncomfortable so much of that was for so long. Remember when you moved house, when you changed job, maybe when you got laid off from a job, when you learned to drive, when you first went out with the person who's now become your spouse, perhaps the discomfort in proposing or in accepting the proposal, right? All of these things, big and small, they were riddled with discomfort. So absolutely there is this discomfort of growing, the discomfort of stepping outside of your comfort zone. But there's another type of discomfort, and that is the discomfort of stagnation. I love the word stagnation, right? What does it mean to stagnate? It makes me think of stagnant water, right? It's just kind of there. When we stagnate is when we just accept familiarity and we kind of go along with it. We wake up and it's kind of like, okay, the path is written for me today. I'm just going to go through the motions of doing everything that's been scripted for me. And the way we talk about this, it's actually intriguing because we talk about standing still. We say, well, I'm just stuck, right? I'm just standing still. But I want to offer that it isn't standing still. You're actually going backwards. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that, because if you are standing still, you are still creating your life each day, right? Each day you're making choices and decisions, even if these are well-worn paths, even if you end up doing the same thing every day, you are still choosing to do those things, right? And this applies to your drinking too. If you pour yourself a glass of wine at the end of the day, every day for a year, now your choices and your actions and your decisions that you're making around alcohol have strengthened a neural pathway in your brain that this is what you do at the end of the day. You can have it even connected to a time, right? This is what you do when it's 5 o'clock, or to a location. This is what we do when it's 5 o'clock and we step in through the front door. Every day, what you're doing is you're strengthening the habit, right? You're giving yourself more time to practice a habit. At the end of the year, you'll have given yourself another 365 days of where you've just really improved yourself on the habit. All right, improved your drinking skills. So can you see that you're not stuck with your drinking? You're actually becoming an even more, I used to say I was an expert drinker. Become more of an expert drinker. because you've done it more, right? So that's what we're used to doing. So then we make the change. We say we want to change our drinking. We're going to change our drinking patterns. There's going to be some level of discomfort there. Now, most people accept this. They say, I know it's going to be tricky, but then they go about it by saying, right, I'm going to willpower my way through, and I'm just going to have to hope and, wish me the best and all those things. But I'm not talking about discomfort in the approach here. I'm talking about a sense of discomfort that's going to come just because of how we are interacting and feeling and allowing our feelings. So let me take an example. Let's say you drink because of anxiety. Again, that's really common. If that's you listening to this, my friend, you have nothing to fear. This is so common, and it's easily something we can do something about. Now, as I explained just now, anxiety in itself isn't a problem. We're all going to have it from time to time. You don't need to solve anxiety. Really, all you need to be able to do is be willing to feel anxious. So it's not going to be about replacing the comfort of drinking. This is so important. People ask me all the time, right? If I stop drinking, Anna, how am I going to fill that gap, right? That's the way that I feel good. I have this thing. I'm not liking how I'm feeling. If I drink, I sort of numb it out so I can feel better. But it isn't the question to ask how you're going to fill the gap. Now, I hope you're sitting down, actually, because you might not like what I'm going to say next about this, right? It's not about replacing the comfort of drinking with something else. It's frankly about being willing to feel rubbish. Because when you stop drinking, you are likely going to feel rather terrible. Because when you remove drinking and remove the thing that's dulling you from your life, right, from all the things you don't like in your life, right, what you're then left with is your life. You're left with you and your life and all the rest of it. You're left with the job that you may hate. You're left with the lack of money. You're left with the unhappy marriage you feel stuck in for the last 30 years. You're left with the shyness that you feel in company. You're left with the social awkwardness that you feel. In fact, you're left with all of the reasons why you have been drinking. Right? You come face to face with it all. The sheen is off, the dull is off. You're face to face with it all. Now, if you're thinking that sounds a terrible idea, I want to offer it's great news. Because then you can see your life for what it is, and you get to make decisions to make it a life you want to live, rather than a life you can only tolerate with alcohol. So no, it won't feel great to start with. It really won't. But here's the question. Are you willing to feel terrible temporarily? And it is temporary, because then you will grow into your life and you will actually end up changing your life, because you will want to live a life in its fullness, in its essence, rather than be tolerating it, right? So you will want to do that. But in that interim time, when it's feeling terrible, there's another decision you can make. You can actually decide to make this a struggle, or you can make it easy on yourself. How, you might be asking? Well, you make it easy on yourself by getting comfort from discomfort. What? You might be asking. So let me explain. While your patterned response to discomfort, right, your normal response to discomfort might be to push it away, might be to stop feeling it by numbing out and drinking, right? We can do something else instead when we feel the discomfort. First, we can stop making it a problem. Second, we can figure out what's going on, i.e. why we're feeling that way. And third, we can ask, what do I need right now? Right? What is this showing me? Let me give you an example. Let's say you're feeling frustrated. I want you to ask why. Maybe say, well, it's because I had a row with my husband and I just don't think he's listening to me. All right? So there's a couple of things here. The first step is to not make it a problem. So you're feeling frustrated because you had a row. Well, you're likely not going to be feeling joyous, so it's probably, completely appropriate you'll be feeling frustrated. And on that point, what's so wrong with feeling frustrated? Really, how does it feel? Right? Maybe you just feel a little bit tense in your shoulders. So aside from it not feeling that great, and I'll be first to say I don't particularly enjoy feeling frustrated, nothing's really wrong. with feeling frustrated. It's not an emergency. It's not something you have to run out and actively do something about. It's just a feeling. So then we ask the second question, what is the frustration showing me? In my example, about if you've had a row with your husband because you're not feeling he's listening to you, maybe the frustration is because you're not feeling like you're being heard. Maybe you're feeling that your voice doesn't count. Now, you might not be able to make others pay attention to you, right? We can't change what others do, but we can ask, how can I give that to myself? One idea is that I can recognize to me that my voice counts. I can listen to me. And then the third question, what do I need right now? Well, maybe you just need to take some time to show yourself that you matter, that your voice counts, right? Perhaps you need to spend some time seeing how you feel valued, how you feel seen. And when we start to do that, our need to seek comfort from the outside, from something external to us, like a bottle of wine, recedes, right? Because we are giving ourselves in that moment what we need. We are doing it ourselves. We have no foreign object doing it. And this is why being able to pay attention to your feelings is so important, because when you feel better, you take better actions. You take actions that are more in line with what you want to be doing. And when you take better actions, guess what? You get better results. And once you learn you can comfort yourself and you can be kind to yourself without using alcohol, then you learn you don't have to overdrink, right? That strategy kind of goes out the window. It's not necessary anymore. Now, this is a skill, but it's a skill we can all learn because it comes from our thoughts, from how we talk to ourselves, how we see ourselves. And in doing this work, I want to offer two emotions that are kind of like the superheroes in this regard. First is acceptance, just to accept where I am, right? This is how I'm feeling right now. I might be feeling this way because I'm taking this decision to remove the alcohol, which I was using as this kind of temporary comforter, if you like. And that's not happening right now, but that's okay. I forgive myself of that. I'm not going to make a fuss about that. And the second is compassion for myself. So acceptance and then compassion. Compassion that I'm going to do what I need to do. And I'm going to treat myself kindly. So when things don't go as I want, I'm still going to pick myself up and carry on and do it again. So how does this show up? If we get into a position where we're thinking, well, here we go again, having a bad day. Right, my brain is going to go to the old default of a glass of wine. That's going to make it better or more exciting or less dull, or at least manageable. If I can recognize that, remember I talk a lot about awareness being step one, I can then accept that's where I am. But I could also know it's not what I want for myself. So if I'm willing to ask, what am I seeking right now? If I'm willing to have compassion for myself and to not make this a problem to solve, then it all feels better and it all feels more achievable, right? I have all the skills within me to handle this because everyone feels this way sometime. Everyone feels frustrated or anxious sometime. It's not a problem that needs to be solved. It's not something I need to solve with alcohol. In fact, these days I look forward to these moments when I'm feeling uncomfortable. Now, I don't, of course, feel like I want to drink these days, but I still get that sense of discomfort, especially when I'm going into new areas, particularly with my business. But that's a great thing because it's a sign I'm changing. It's a sign that my brain is going through the rough stuff, right? It's a sign I'm evolving. It's a sign I'm not in some unconscious habit loop. And the same is true for you, right? When you really get started in digging into how you're feeling, not making it a problem, being able to allow the feelings, being able to just live as your experiences in that moment and not make it a problem and not have to numb it out with alcohol. It's going to feel uncomfortable. But that's really good because it's a sign that your brain is not running that automatic pattern of not even knowing this is going on and just finding yourself with a glass of wine in your hand. And it is the best thing, right? Because the more you learn that you can accept these times when you're not feeling great and not react with the drink, right? Then the more you are giving yourself comfort from knowing you can handle anything, and that's all you need. And that in order to achieve this, all you need is your brain, and you have that right this moment, lovely people. So in summary, when you can decouple comfort from consumption, particularly for you, my audience, from consumption of alcohol, that's when things change. When you can see that your feelings are not a problem to solve, you recognize you're human. I have feelings. I don't always like the feelings, right? And that's okay. But then more than that, when you can see your feelings as signs to figuring out what's going on for me right now, and what do I need right now? What am I seeking right now? That's when it gets so exciting, and you can start taking control and start taking action. And when you can start seeing discomfort for what it is, it's what we experience as we evolve and grow. It's something to be embraced rather than feared. Then we start taking action that blows our socks off. Then we start achieving long-term comfort instead of the very short-term comfort from a glass or two of wine. We get this long-term comfort because we are creating the life we want rather than just avoiding the one that we have or tolerating the one that we have. And that's when we're giving ourselves the ultimate comfort from knowing I can handle anything. All I need is my brain. Thank you for listening. That's it for this week. If you want to achieve a new relationship with alcohol fast, and I mean fast, let's talk. And this will change your life. It won't just change your drinking. This will change everything about you, from your work to your family life, to your relationships, to how you see yourself. Everything. Now, working with a coach is the quickest and cheapest way to achieve that freedom around alcohol, to get that freedom, unleashed freedom in your life, whether you want to cut back or stop entirely. Work with me. I do this for a living. I get my clients' results. You will not regret it. Take the first step today by booking a call with me to learn how this could work for you. Go to 90dayslater.co and simply click on the blue book a call button. The first call is free. At minimum, you will leave the call no longer confused as to how you can create the relationship with alcohol that you want, which, my friends, is the first step, the first teeny tiny step, but magnificent step to creating the life that you want. Okay, that's it for now. I will see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around and they don't miss out on life. And we do it in 90 days. The effect is permanent. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.